Philip Catney is a senior lecturer in politics at Keele University here in the UK. Welcome to the programme, Philip. I mean, everybody's wondering whether this is going to cost the Prime Minister his job.
Well, it's a very dangerous waters at the moment. The Conservative backbenchers are furious that there's evidence now. There's been suggestions he's been involved in parties in the past, but this is the clearest evidence yet that he serves very close to him. His principal private secretary organised this party. So there's not unreasonable questions about the extent to which the Prime Minister knew about this. So there are alleged to be a large number of Conservative MPs, particularly from the 2019 intake, who were there placed to Mr Johnson in winning that election, who are now asking about how they go about putting in a letter of no confidence to the chairman of the 1922 committee. That's the committee that represents Conservative backbenchers. So Mr Johnson is in extreme peril at this moment in terms of his premiership.
Is there any doubt about the integrity of the investigation which is being conducted by Sue Gray, the civil servant? Because there are allegations that she herself was invited to some of these parties during lockdown.
Well, we saw previously Simon Case was in charge of this investigation before then. It was how he was at parties. Ultimately, whatever the investigation comes up with, it will go. If it's not a matter about disciplining civil servants, but it comes back to the politicians and the Prime Minister himself, it's the Prime Minister who will judge whether the ministerial code has been broken here. So this is one of the absurd elements of British political life here. There has been alleged wrongdoing, but the person at the top is the person who interprets the rules and decides whether the rules have been broken or not. Now, we're in a slightly absurd position where Mr Johnson and people around him are saying we should wait till the Gray inquiry investigation is completed. But they know whether they've been at this party or not, and this is one of these absurd situations where they're unwilling to. They're hoping that people will cool off by the time that Sue Gray responds. I understand the Conservative MPs are not willing to wait that long. They want an answer sooner rather than later.
People are openly calling Boris Johnson a liar. He's been fired from, I believe, at least 2 jobs for inventing facts, for essentially lying. I mean, you must know the history of British politics inside out. When you look at the history of British prime ministers, have we ever had a prime minister in the UK whose integrity has been questioned as much as Boris Johnson's?
Disraeli had a colourful history. David Lloyd George was alleged to have sold peerages. Harold Wilson was alleged to be a Soviet spy. That was untrue. There's no evidence of that. Mr Johnson is probably the most questioned person in terms of integrity that's ever been in the office. If your viewers recall back at the leadership debates back in the 2019 election, Mr Johnson made some quip about honesty and the audience burst out laughing. It was an open joke that this man is untrustworthy. So the danger for Mr Johnson is that Conservative politicians have accepted, they've priced in the Mr Johnson's often being economical with the truth, because that was part of what endeared him to voters. He was one of those people who gave a cheeky smile, a smirk. It was amusing. It was somebody who's getting away, a naughty schoolboy getting away with things. It's moved on beyond this joke now, and we're now seeing that this man protects MPs who've been engaged in very dubious behaviour in terms of outside earnings. Mr Owen Paterson case. We've seen that the Prime Minister has lied to the Queen with the prorogation of Parliament. We've seen that he has been involved in various elements in his personal life, which many other political leaders would never survive. So Mr Johnson has been one of those politicians who seem to have a Teflon quality. Unfortunately for Mr Johnson now, things are starting to stick. And this is one of those incidents where they did snap polling today of members of the public. And it was not surprising that a large majority of people think that Mr Johnson should go. What's interesting is this large number of voters who voted Conservative for the first time in 2019 are now saying that Mr Johnson is somebody who should go. Indeed, John Caldwell, who is a substantial donor to the Conservative Party, is saying that Mr Johnson needs to get this sorted out, whatever that means, or go. So things are getting quite tight for him now, and there's very little room for him to wiggle on this. Tomorrow, as your correspondent said, tomorrow at Prime Minister's Question, will be interesting because his own backbenchers will be watching him as closely as the opposition parties will be. So he has to have something good tomorrow to say, or he is in very deep trouble. And if more allegations come out, if more evidence comes out, if pictures come out, he probably has hours in that post left to this point. This has really cut through to the British population in a way which many of us did not think Mr. Johnson could be touched by things like this because of his history of not being exactly straight with the population on various issues.
Philip, it must be a really interesting time to be one of your students in your lectures. Thanks so much indeed. Philip Catney from the University of Keele.